Hey everyone, Clay here. Just wanted to let you know I've got a new comic book out right now from Comixology Originals and Amazon. It's called Hardstyle Juice. It's a professional wrestling murder mystery, so if you're into pro wrestling and comics and all that good stuff, you're going to want to check it out. And it's free to read if you have Amazon Prime. It's a digital-only comic. If you want to check it out, head over to hardstylejuice.com, and that'll direct you right to the page where you can check it out. That's hardstylejuice.com. Thanks, guys. Hello! Welcome to the Rotten Horror Picture Show, the horror movie podcast, where we talk about films off the Rotten Tomatoes 200 best horror movies of all time list.
The only 200 horror movies
only 200
ever
if
made.
Honestly, that would not be great.
Yeah.
If these were the only 200 that existed.
That would be a bummer.
My name is Clay. With me, as always, is Amanda. How are you doing, Amanda?
I'm good. I have my antlers on, and I'm ready for the deer cheer.
Excellent. It looked like fun.
It did look like fun.
Yeah. I feel like Nathan Fillion's character could have, I guess it's different. If you come from a small town and you don't fit in with those people and there's like something that all those people are into that you don't really like, you probably get sick of it. But the dancing looked fun.
Dancing looked like a great time.
Band looked pretty good.
Yeah, they weren't bad.
Yeah. So just got to kill some animals.
No.
We are talking about Slither from 2006.
Damn.
It is number 156 on our list, has an 87% Rotten Tomatoes score with a 63% audience score. I'm actually surprised the audience score is that low.
I'm surprised the critic score is that high.
I think I can explain that.
Okay.
I actually think I can explain the split, but
Okay.
we will get to that. Had you seen this one before?
No, I had seen some like marketing and promotional materials for this and had no idea what I was getting into.
Yeah, it's the poster is, I think the poster's pretty good because it's like the bathtub
It's
and
a
like the
good
thing on it.
Poster, but I feel like it's a poster for a different movie.
It doesn't really give you the tone of this movie is makes sense in 1985. But I think when this movie came out, it's a bit of a harder sell.
Yes.
And they definitely chose not to sell it based on those merits.
Yes.
But we will get into that. I had seen this. I've seen this once before, somewhere along the way. This was 2006. I didn't see it in the theater. I think I probably watched this, I don't know, a handful of years later on DVD.
Yeah.
Just to because I hadn't seen it.
Yeah, this feels like an early era Netflix rental.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you would just be like, whatever.
Right.
You know, when Netflix had like a limited amount of options and you'd just be like, all right, fuck it, why not?
I'm trying to remember if I got this. You know what? I think I probably was drawn to this because of reading about it on the internet, which we will get into that. Relates to the last thing that I said. But we're going to take a quick break. I saw on YouTube, there's one of those Vanity Fair videos where they have like a celebrity come on and talk about their roles or whatever.
Sure.
And they were doing one. It was William Shatner grading impressions of him.
Oh.
And most of them he thought were really bad.
Okay.
Except he really liked Bruce Campbell because Bruce Campbell figured it out. Like, and he does the impression and he explains the impression, and Shatner goes, he understands it because Bruce Campbell goes like, if I have time, I'll edit it in here so I don't sound like an asshole.
Normally, Shatner talks at a pretty lightning fast pace. He's William Shatner. He's talking, and when sometimes the lines aren't as obvious to him, he slows down, becomes more deliberate in his approach. Until he gets her, then he's back speeding up again and talking.
See, Bruce Campbell's an actor, and he knows that actors, me anyway, what the hell is the next word? Oh, I can remember the next words. And he's right. So Bruce Campbell is really the most knowledgeable.
Oh, wow. Why is that coming up right now? Because you had a big pause?
Great question. I don't know. Yes, I think that was why.
Okay.
I think it was because of my big pause.
I think you should play the trailer now.
Okay. We'll play it. Oh, fine. Hey, I run the show. We're playing the trailer. We'll be back in a minute.
When you marry someone, you promise to love them forever.
Baby.
No matter how much they might change.
Brian? Baby, what happened to your face?
It's just a bee sting.
From Universal Pictures
Are you sick or something?
comes a film so shocking,
We got a real problem here.
so disgusting,
Don't let him in your mouth!
it will change the face of horror.
Marriage is a sacred bond, for better or worse.
Much worse. Chick is hardcore.
Something's wrong with me.
Slither.
Okay, Slither from 2006, written and directed by James Gunn, starring the guy. I thought I was going to be able. Did I do it? I think I do have an entire. I don't actually say anybody's name. No, I missed one. Damn it. Okay. The guy from Firefly, the director of Cocaine Bear, the guy from every James Gunn movie, Greg Henry, who is the guy from like every movie ever, and Pam from The Office. Amanda.
Yes.
What happens in Slither? It's very dry in here. That was difficult
Is that
to
what
do.
that was? Wheelsey is a small town where not much happens and everyone minds his own business. No one notices when evil slips in quietly, but when people find mutilated livestock and a woman goes missing, Sheriff Bill Party discovers an alien organism that threatens to devour all life on Earth.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah, more or less.
pretty much.
Well, Clay, some things you'll find in Slither include a Grant Eat Dog world, or too many dead dogs for Amanda to enjoy this movie.
Too many dead dogs. Finally found your limit, huh?
Yeah, my limit is one dead dog, and this one has like a baker's dozen.
That's true.
Yes.
And well, I mean, at least they're all centralized to one location.
Stop it. One charnel house of dead pets.
Yeah. And it wasn't just dogs. There were cats in there, too.
I like cats, too.
They at least deserve to die.
A baby with a tomato.
Yes. That was probably
No
one of my
explanation needed.
One of my favorite moments in the movie was the hard cut to the baby in the crib with a tomato,
Yep, just eating
which
the
I
tomato.
guess originally had more explanation, which was Brenda says that it's cheaper than baby toys, and that he makes the tomato nice and soft.
Oh,
So she can eat it later.
okay.
But they cut it out because it would be funnier without the explanation, and I agree.
Unusually clever horror movie references.
Yeah, one thing I hate.
Is
Hold
unusually
on, hold
clever
on,
things?
Hold on. Let me move this really heavy soapbox right in front of me before I start talking. I really, I appreciate it on a certain level, but I don't appreciate when people throw in, when these movies have blatant horror movie references that are like character names that are just like really, what's the word I'm looking for? Lazy.
Right,
where
it's sort
it's-
of like, this is my neighbor, Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, or it's like Dr. Craven, or what I've seen. There's one, and I hate to say this because it's a filmmaker I like. I think it's a John Carpenter movie.
That
where-
makes sense.
Where there's a character.
He doesn't give a flying fuck
Yeah.
about naming his
There's
characters.
a character name. Like, he usually does pretty good. Like naming Sam Loomis, that's clever, and Marion
Sure.
Crane, that's clever.
Yeah.
or maybe it's not. I can't remember who. It was one of those guys. It was like a contemporary. Maybe it was like Joe Dante or something, who had characters named Carpenter, Landis, Craven. I think there was a Cronenberg in there. And it's like, I understand these are your friends, but I feel like this is kind of lazy.
Yeah.
This one I felt like did it fairly subtly and cleverly.
And it fit the tone of the movie.
Yeah, because it's got one of the first things you see is the store that is R.J. McCready's, who of course is Kurt Russell from The Thing.
And the mayor.
No, that's Jack McCready. Yeah.
Right. But he has the name.
He does.
It's,
he does have
the
the
family
name.
name.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's later on they make reference to going over to the Castavets, which is from Rosemary's Baby. The bathtub scene where the Thing goes into the bathtub is, I think it's probably more of a homage to Cronenberg's Shivers, which is Cronenberg's first movie, which I want to do at some point because it's very similar to this movie, except instead of turning everybody into monsters, they just get super horny and start killing each other.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
He was figuring shit out.
Yeah, that's kind of the theme of all of his movies is like humans, what the fuck?
Yeah, you kind of you watch that movie and you go, oh, he kind of figured his thing out pretty early.
Yeah.
Just refined it.
Just being boggled at humanity.
Yeah, it's a little bit Shivers. It's a little bit Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah,
they do
with
that
the
straight
Freddy hand,
you know, between the legs shot and stuff. What's the other one? Earl Bassett High School is named after the guy from Tremors.
Go Cooters.
Yes, the Cooters. And Henenlotter's Saddle Lodge is named after Frank Henenlotter, who directed Basket Case and Brain Damage. That one's probably the closest to the thing that I don't like because that's like, I don't know. At least it's an obscure enough name.
Well, isn't also the guy from Trauma just like sitting in a chair at one point?
Yeah. Lloyd Kaufman from Trauma shows up as a drunk in the police station, and they at one point someone's watching Toxic Avenger on TV.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah,
fun.
So they get them in there in a way that isn't too distracting.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. We're still in our things you'll find list.
We are.
Quote, a needle in a fuck stack.
Yes, there's a lot of interesting sayings.
Yeah,
from
some
these
fun
guys.
little bon mots in this script. You can see the James Gunn of it all.
Oh yeah.
Meat.
Lots of meat.
Just meat and talking about meat.
Yep.
Looking at meat.
14 ribeye steaks. Is that what he buys?
Blah.
That's a lot of meat.
It's too much meat.
Trying to piece that cow back together or something.
The symptoms of Lyme disease.
Yeah.
I love that exchange in the police office when they're like debating whether or not he's a squid.
Yeah.
And there's the squid plushie, and then he's like, he's just some guy with Lyme disease, and they're all like, what do you think Lyme disease does?
Yes. What does Starla say? Is Starla say Lyme disease? Because she says something, and then she's like, he has all the symptoms.
Oh. I don't remember exactly, but I do remember at one point she thinks it's like a bee sting. Like he's allergic to something.
Maybe it's that, yeah.
Chekhov's grenade.
Yes. Chekhov's grenade, which it fits nicely into, I think, what is clever about this movie, where it is such a clear setup that ultimately doesn't work.
Yes.
Which I appreciate.
Yeah, which
That's
is
a nice
fun.
way to handle that.
A grand shunting.
Yeah, the closest thing we've seen. Aren't you glad we watched Society now? So you can see this movie and go, oh, this is akin to a grand shunting.
I feel that way about several movies that we've done.
Yes.
Where I'm just like, even if I didn't super enjoy it in the moment, I appreciate now having the knowledge that I can spot the references in other things.
I detect notes of shunting in this final scene.
The terror of shunting.
Anyway, Slither. 2006 is a rough time.
Weird time for everyone, including me.
Rough. Oh, go on.
It's the year I graduated high school, so
yes.
it's just a fucking awful year.
It is also an awful year for American horror movies.
Yes.
It is mostly remakes and
we're on probably Saw like 3, maybe 4.
Yep, lots of sequels.
Yeah, Hostel Part 2.
The Wicker Man comes out this year.
The Bees.
Yes. You know, to talk about the bees.
Oh, okay. Is this just going to be Tangents, the episode?
Probably.
Okay.
The bees, not actually in the movie. It's in the director's cut of the movie. So that only came out like when it got to YouTube. That wasn't something that was like in the movie.
Wow, this is definitely a Mandela effect moment for me because I remember seeing it in the theater. and it being bees.
I could be wrong. I've been wrong once before. Even though I still think that was the same woman in that Halloween movie. But I'm pretty sure that the bees sequence is not in the theatrical cut.
I buy it.
Or it's,
yeah.
it's either that or it's like the longer version or something. I can't remember. Yeah. Anyway, disregard everything I've said. Yeah, American Horror, not doing real great. Mm-hmm. You've got a couple standouts from overseas. This is Pan's Labyrinth, comes out this year.
Oh, wow.
Which I've been meaning to rewatch because I didn't really like that the first time I saw it. But
it's just a bummer.
Yeah.
It's a sad movie.
And there's another big one that I forget, but it was another overseas film. And so this is something that is kind of refreshing, but also, as we were talking about with the poster, I don't think that they know how to sell this movie.
Yeah, totally.
Because it is an original horror concept, which is a horror comedy similar to like something you would see in the mid 80s. And that's not really something that's happening at this point.
This feels to me, and this is like...
Horror is very like overly serious at this point.
Yes. And this feels to me like, and I'm going to use like a reductive, I kind of hate the like splitting things into millennials do this and Gen Z does that. But this feels like a Gen X horror movie in a way.
Oh, it definitely is. Yeah.
That hadn't really happened before. At least to my knowledge, where it was way more about like, hey, do you remember the things we would sneak in, like sneak watching at your friend's house on, you know, a passed around VHS tape in, you know, 1980, whatever. And like mainstream marketing did not know what to do with that or who to bill it to. Like who is the audience for this? Because it's kind of a niche audience.
Yes.
And I think in 2006, it was a lot more difficult to locate your niche audience when the internet was not quite as robust.
Yeah, it's this, to go back to what I said about when I saw this was a movie that I came across through the internet movie websites that I was frequenting. Probably Ain't It Cool News is probably where I read mostly about this one, which was like kind of the king at the time.
Yeah.
And like those areas, those different websites loved this movie because I think it was very niche. It was very much playing, it very much plays in the kind of stuff that people, you know, within 5 years of my age on either side were really starting to hook into. Yeah. You know, as far as the older stuff, like this is, I think, probably around the time when everybody just decided that The Thing was really good. After 30 years of nobody caring about it.
Yep.
And we're not quite into the 80s revival yet. That comes a few years later.
Right. We're definitely not into the A24 style.
Yeah, or like, even like, what was it? We were kind of talking about like Let Me In as being one of the first retro 80s horror movies. And that's not till like 2009, I think. Is that true?
Yeah, probably. That sounds right.
I gotta check now.
Yeah, but this movie, it rewards...
2010.
2010, yeah.
Even later than I thought.
It rewards this sort of like insider knowledge.
Yes.
In a way that I feel like a lot of horror movies kind of always, not always, but like a lot of horror movies have had that feature. Like you were talking about earlier with different directors and writers kind of referencing back down this sort of horror movie lineage and leaving these like fun little Easter eggs for the people in the know.
Yeah.
And that's pretty common in horror movies, but like this one I think takes that to another level. Like you can sort of see how James Gunn and people like him snuck that into all of the like MCU and superhero movies where it just becomes a film that is more enriched for the people who have the background knowledge than for those who do not. Yeah.
I do think though that he is doing it very earnestly.
Yes. Yeah.
Because James Gunn comes up through Trauma. And if you're not familiar with Trauma is a low budget exploitation film company that's been around since I want to say the 70s, but I think it even goes back further than that. Yeah. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, well, technically we made a porno in 1969, you know, one of those things. but like their tone is always very much like this movie,
Yeah.
which is very tongue in cheek,
Yep.
very over the top, and
Yep.
so like that's the school that he came up through.
Yeah.
He has one of the strangest
Yeah.
filmographies of the modern like guys who are in charge of everything.
Yeah, he sort of made this leap at some point in his career from these sort of weird, obscure, very idiosyncratic
Yeah.
movies, and then into these big budget superhero movies.
Yeah,
which
but
is a really fascinating.
he's got a couple randos along the way too, because
Mm.
he does Slither. He does that movie Super,
Right.
which is kind of a similar vibe to this, except I mean
Yeah.
it's even darker, I think, if I remember correctly.
I think so. But also could be like read more easily as a resume for doing a big like MCU or DC movie.
Right.
Yeah.
But he also writes, before any of this, he wrote the Dawn of the Dead remake,
Oh.
and he wrote Scooby-Doo, both Scooby-Doo movies. And so he's working as like a writer and kind of like a script doctor, I think,
Yeah.
before he starts making these movies.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he goes from Dawn of the Dead to Scooby-Doo to Slither to Super to Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And so he does take, it's a very like
Yeah. No, it
big strides.
Yes, it reminds me of Craig Mazin, the guy who's
Oh,
like
sure.
hit it huge with big prestige TV, who did Chernobyl and The Last of Us.
Yes, yeah.
And he started out like being the script doctor for like The Hangover Part 3.
Right.
Like that was where he was like making his money, and then I don't know, right connections, right timing. He just sort of lucked into the Chernobyl. No, I shouldn't say he lucked into the Chernobyl thing, but
Yeah.
Have
you ever listened to his podcast?
I don't think so.
It's really good.
Oh, I'll have to check it out. I
haven't
really
listened to it.
like him. I
Yeah.
I appreciate his sensibility very much.
He and his, I think they, I can't remember if they're just friends or if they were writing partners for a while. They have a podcast. The name escapes me. I listened to it for a while, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's really good.
Cool.
He tells a really funny story about the fact that he was roommates with Ted Cruz in college.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so you can dig that one out.
Oh God, I know what I'm doing after we record. Sitting in your living room and listening to that
Spoiler
episode.
alert, he didn't like him. But yeah, and so what you end up getting is one of the earlier incarnations of this group of filmmakers who grew up on the stuff in the 80s and is starting to be referential. Like I was just looking to see where these things fall, but Cabin Fever is 2002, which
Yeah.
I was surprised was that early.
That makes sense to me because I remember when it came out being too scared to watch it,
Ah, yes.
which definitely is much more of a 14-year-old Amanda thing as opposed to a 16-year-old Amanda thing.
Well, if it's any consolation, I watched that, and me being the Evil Dead fan that I am, I loved it. And then I told all my friends, you guys need to watch this movie.
So you're the reason that my husband is traumatized by that movie.
Well, nobody liked it. Like, it was one of those things where, like, I think half the people left just because they didn't. And I was like, why? We had watched these other movies together. I'm like, why isn't this clicking? I don't understand.
I love half my friends bailed on this movie, or I turned
Yeah.
around and realized I was alone in the room stories. 'Cause
Yeah.
there are a few of them
There are.
where you've tested out some stuff on an audience and been sadly disappointed by your cohort
Yes, I did. I have learned a lot.
about who and how to recommend a movie.
Yes, one of the very important things that I learned along the way, which the knowledge I passed on to my girlfriend when I turned her into a nerd, is she told me one time she was like at work or something, and she brought something up, and like something like, I don't know if it was Nerd or Doctor Who or something, and like dead room.
Yeah.
Nobody responded. And she's like,
No.
I didn't really know what happened. And I said, okay, number one thing you have to learn, if you're going to be into this stuff, you got to know your room. You got to know
Yeah.
your audience. You have to
Yeah.
like take stock of the people you're talking to, kind of gauge them,
Yeah.
where they might fall before you start diving into this shit. Because trust me,
Yes.
I've done it poorly in the past. And she was there for the
Just
Cabin Fever
watch
one.
the light go out of people's eyes as you
Yes.
speak.
Yeah, but you get Slither, which is, I would say it's definitely of that tone.
Yeah.
But what did you think? It was your first time seeing it? How'd you feel about it?
It was kind of a weird watch for me. I knew what it was trying to do, but I just it just like didn't quite work for me in terms of it. Like I wanted it to be almost like a little further out there.
Okay.
Like maybe not grosser. I don't necessarily mean grosser, but
more dead dogs. Yeah.
no, stop it.
I'm just listen. I'm just
But
inferring.
I don't know. I think I wanted. There were times, especially like when you're first watching it and you're kind of settling into the tone.
You didn't get to see them die on screen. Is that what the problem was? You would have
Why
preferred
are you
that?
doing this to me? What did I do to you, Clay? But like Elizabeth Banks, who plays Starla, like when the movie starts with her, I was like, is she doing a bad job acting, or has she been told to behave this way?
Yeah.
And I think it's that she was told to behave this way because I've seen her in other stuff, and
Yeah.
she's a good actress. Like
Apparently, the vibe he was going for with her was Hitchcock blonde.
I think he missed the mark a little bit.
Yeah.
On that,
Because she doesn't follow anybody home for the first hour of the movie.
No, I think it's because she's like a little too overtly sexy.
Okay.
You know, like there's a little bit too much of a like phone operator voice, like sex phone operator voice going on,
Sure.
like when she's talking to her high school students.
Sure.
And I think at least the Hitchcock blondes that I'm thinking of, a lot of them have almost like, even when they're in intimate moments, this sort of like barrier between them and the world.
Yeah, that's fair.
And she does not have that. And so that's kind of why I think her character missed the mark for me a little bit, which is a bummer because I think her arc is actually really interesting.
Yeah,
in the movie.
I think the thing that stood out to me about this was not the humor of it, because I know that he can do that stuff pretty well. It was that it was the arc of her and the husband.
Yeah.
Because usually this setup is like, oh, her husband is terrible.
Yep.
And she wants to get out of there, and then the guy is there to say, but like they set them up as just like they're kind of a weird couple who are having issues.
Yeah.
But ultimately through the movie, they do legitimately love each other, it seems like.
Yeah, it's kind
even
of like
when he turns into a monster.
It's this sort of sad, like the background of Starla Grant and Grant, which is a hilarious thing to name any character in your movie.
I guarantee you that was like a typing error.
Yeah, and they just were like, keep it. It's good. It sounds, he seems like he's older than her.
Definitely, yeah.
And that he comes from a wealthy family and sort of rescued her from this very bad life that she was raised in. And because of that, she feels very grateful to him.
Yeah.
But she seems like she got with him when she was really young and maybe didn't fully know what she really wanted out of a relationship or a marriage, and kind of did the practical thing by marrying him, not the I'm in love and I'm going to marry you thing. But there is like moments in this movie where it's like clear that they both take their marriage vows very seriously.
Yeah.
Like she even said, I have it written down that she says marriage is a sacred bond.
Yes.
But like early in the movie, before Grant gets infected by the alien, he is out in the woods because he has this opportunity to cheat on Starla with this younger woman. And they're kind of, flirting and teasing each other, but nothing has really happened. And when it starts to, he goes, I can't do this. I got to go home.
Yeah.
I got to go home to my wife. She's going to be worried about me. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And he starts to leave. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, he's kind of an awkward dude, and he's definitely way more into her than she is into him.
That's clear, yeah.
And he's a little jealous and a little possessive, but he doesn't seem like a bad husband.
Yeah, that's the thing. And they're really walking a weird line doing that, because it kind of makes you not like Nathan Fillion.
Yeah.
Because he's like, he's obviously got the hots for her.
Right. And the story is that he has since they were kids.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, but like.
And it seems like the understanding of Starla and Grant's marriage that everybody else has is not what it actually is.
Right.
And so that's why when, he's obviously he's going out of his way to save her because she's in trouble. But like these movies are usually, he's in love with her. Maybe he gets the girl at the end or whatever.
Right.
But you kind of start, as you're watching this, you're kind of going, is his name Bill?
Yes.
Bill, just back off, man. She's kind of, she's got her own thing.
She's not looking to cheat on her husband with you
even
or anyone
at the end
else.
of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not even clear that she likes him.
I even have written in my notes that I think the love story between Nathan Fillion and Elizabeth Banks is unnecessary to this movie. I think
is there a love story though?
Well, I mean, because it's trying to make
Bill
it,
there is.
It's trying to make it that there is. You know, they have these cute moments together, and like they're at the deer cheer, they're dancing, and it seems like kind of sweet. And it's Nathan Fillion, and he's so charming. So of course you want him to end up with the beautiful blonde woman that he's in love with. And then he comes and rescues her, and they talk about, remember when we were kids and I came to your house at night and I asked you to run away to Hollywood with me. Like you're supposed to believe that there is some level of mutual attraction between these people and that they're better suited for one another than Starla and Grant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of don't buy it, and I also just don't think the movie even really needs it.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you could have just been like, if you made them siblings...
Yeah, that would.
It still would have worked.
Yeah.
If
he doesn't like his sister's husband.
Exactly. I know you married him. Like, you were so young, you shouldn't have married him that young. And I know you thought you were doing a good thing for the family, and you paid off the mortgage or whatever.
Right.
But like you didn't have to do that. You gave up your life for this man.
Yeah.
Like, you could have had that just as easily, or just have them be like platonic childhood friends. Like,
they don't do that in movies. Come on.
But he's the sheriff. So like. When shit starts going down, it's his job to step in and try and save people.
Right.
So he doesn't need a ton more motivation than that.
True. Yep.
I'm just saying, like, I feel like there are other configurations they could have played around with in this, and it wouldn't have hurt the movie any.
Yeah, it does. I feel like it is fighting itself.
Yeah.
In that sense, because I feel like the relationship between Grant and Starla feels very much like something later James Gunn would write, and the stuff with Bill feels very sort of like younger.
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like I feel like the relationship between Starla and Grant is a more maturely written story than the one with Bill.
Yeah, because I think the one with Starla and Grant is. Aside from the alien parasite, it's actually kind of realistic. Like,
sure.
you could buy that these people married halfway out of convenience and halfway out of love, and that there's, an age difference and a kind of difference in desires and expectations, and they've been married long enough at that point that, you've settled into a groove, and you don't even realize, like, oh, maybe I don't want this. Maybe I do. Maybe I want this, but some different version of it. Like, that sort of complicated gray thing happening between them, where it's not that either one of them is a horrible person or a horrible spouse.
Right.
It's just that they're maybe not correctly matched.
Yeah.
Like, that's a much more complex and realistic and mature story of a marriage in this very campy
right.
over the top gross out horror movie. It's an interesting like contrast in there.
Yeah, you end up in this weird place too where it's like you almost feel like Starla should be the one who solves the problem at the end.
Yeah.
Instead of what's his name although I guess he does he shoot the thing or does she shoot the thing?
She shoots him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that
he
counts.
gets the propane tank hooked up.
Yeah. I do like that Bill is very much a Jack Burton from Big Trouble in Little China type character where he doesn't do a lot right.
Yes.
Or he does things like halfway or doesn't quite get there and someone else has to kind of pick up the slack, which is I feel
it's
like
a very Nathan Fillion character.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's a lot of peacemaker in this movie.
Sure.
And I feel like what's going on here, as far as the way these characters are written, is like kind of a dry run for Peacemaker.
Totally.
Where if you dial Bill up 6 or 7 notches, you kind of get Peacemaker.
Yeah, if you dial him up 3, you get Star-Lord.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, 'cause he's someone who has an idea of what he thinks is the right thing to do, but he's not really necessarily good at it. Or
and he's kind of immature in a way. Like, yeah. He's still sort of finding his footing as, like, what kind of person am I and what matters? Because it seems like up until this movie, he's never been tested.
Yeah.
You know, like he's just lived in this small town his whole life, and he's just sort of like everybody in this town is just kind of hanging out and doing the things they always do and going to the deer cheer.
But yeah, I think, like, I bet if he wrote this movie now, he would be able to die. It makes it sound like he wrote this when he was like 15. But, you know, like, I think he would probably dial in these things a little bit tighter.
Probably. I mean, he's had more years and experience to refine what works for his style and his tone and what interests him more, you know?
Yeah. He loves a hive mind.
He does love a hive mind.
He's got this one, Peacemaker.
Yeah.
Suicide Squad.
Oh, yeah.
Technically Dawn of the Dead, if you want to count zombies as a hive. It's not really a hive mind, but, you know.
Okay, you can argue it if you want.
But yeah, as we were watching this, I was like, man,
mind.
this is a lot of Peacemaker in this with the alien that goes inside the head.
Yeah.
And they all talk to each other. They can all talk from the same source and all. Hive mind, obviously.
I liked that, actually. I thought that was really, like, fun and effective.
Yeah.
To have them all kind of, like, talking to her in turn, like talking to Starla.
Yeah.
And then when she's escaping, all the zombie kind of people are shuffling after her going, Starla! Starla!
Yeah, that stuff is great because instead of it just being like mindless, you know, drones or saying
they sort
something
of do
like,
have a purpose.
I'm going to take over the world. It's
Brains.
this alien has gone in through Grant and has taken on Grant's whatever.
Yeah.
And his concern is that Starla doesn't love him anymore. And so that's what this alien is concerned with, which is, I think, very, very clever.
Right, because it's interesting in that it's not just this alien went inside of Grant and now Grant has been wiped out.
Yes.
You know, like parts of Grant are still in there and active. And like she even says, like towards that big final confrontation when he's like starting to tentacle wrap around Starla, she's kind of trying to talk him out of it. Mm-hmm. And when she calls him Grant, he backs off. And she spots it and says, like, oh, you like that. You like it when I call you Grant. And like you like these memories of all these pictures you've put everywhere. Like you still want some part of that life. Which is, I think, really interesting in this movie for like a movie that could have very easily just made Michael Rooker's character a total monster.
Yes.
Like it would have been really easy to just put him fully into that grotesque creature mode and just be like, yeah, there's nothing in him that's human anymore. And so of course Sheriff Bill has to blow him up.
Yeah. I feel like once you crack the idea that she comes up from the basement and he has done this weird twisted alien understanding of a romantic gesture by putting bloody pictures of her all over the walls.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, that's you've figured it out here. This is pretty good.
Yep.
I think the other characters, the surrounding characters, are good as well.
Yeah.
I think the most superfluous is probably the other girl, who is really only there to have that one interaction where she just learns some backstory about
Deus Ex Worm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like that stuff is all so I mean, it's kind of interesting, I guess, if you want to know what the worm's deal is, but it's like
I feel like you could have worked that in.
Yeah, or you can. I mean, even if it's down to like she needs to be the one to tell them, oh, well, if you kill the big one, they all die. It's okay. You could have figured that out.
Yeah. I don't know. Her inclusion kind of weirded me out too because she is a high school student. Mm-hmm. We see her in Starla's class at the beginning of the movie, and then we also see her like she is the only character we see at least partially nude. Mm-hmm. And so there's just sort of like a weird, like, really, do we have to do this to like the 17-year-old girl?
It's another throwback to the 70s when it didn't matter.
It is, and I understand that.
I don't think that's actually what it was, but
well, if it was, or if that was kind of the cover for it, it's a little bit like, Look, there are some references worth making, and there are some things we could maybe just move past.
Every scene of this movie is a reference to the opening scene from Carrie.
Plug it up, Clay.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised that they only went in through the mouth.
Yeah, that seemed like maybe someone was forced to dial it back a little bit.
Yeah,
because that does make it a little bit like, wait a minute, but you're going to use your abdomen tentacles to pump this woman so full of slug babies that she becomes a giant NC-17 Violet Beauregard.
Yep.
But those slug babies will only enter another body through the mouth.
Yeah, I wonder. I did read that originally, I don't know if they shot it or if they were going to shoot the girl's two younger sisters when they get taken over. They actually showed them the thing, and he was like, this can. There's like a weird kind of sexual undertone to the way these things go in, and so it's just better that we don't show that.
I think that's a good call.
And so I wonder if that was part of it, where it's like, it's just,
I mean, when you have like a very phallic creature and a penetrative act, it's kind of hard to guide the human mind away from certain topics.
Don't worry. David Cronenberg Shivers totally picks up all that slack.
Yeah, I'm sure he would never delve into the grotesque sides of human sexuality.
Never. Never. But one of the things I do like is I think he does a good enough job making the surrounding characters likable that when he does the other thing that he's become famous for, which is making sure that no one is safe. It kind of hits a little bit when some of these side characters get killed. Like when they bring the group, basically the posse to the
barn.
Brenda's
Brenda's barn.
Birthing.
Brenda's birthing barn.
Chamber. Yeah. Some of those characters you don't necessarily think are going to get killed.
Yeah.
Like the other girl cop, I can't remember what her name is.
Yeah, the female deputy.
Yeah.
Who likes the country of China.
Yes. Yeah. Prefers a box lunch. He'll do that kind of thing where a character like that will get it, but then Greg Henry's character, who's just a slime ball, won't, at least for a while. The fact that the kids get taken over.
You definitely, at least I definitely thought for a little while there it was going to be that she rescues her younger siblings, and when she couldn't, I was like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah, he has a tendency
to go for it.
He has a tendency to play for keeps when it comes to that stuff. Like he doesn't. No one really has any plot armor, as the kids say. A term I fucking hate.
What does that term mean? Anyway, we don't have to go into it.
It's basically if your name is in the opening credits, you're not going to get killed.
Yeah, anyway, we can yell about that off mic. We've tangented enough.
Have you seen Super?
I know I watched at least most of it like years and years ago. I think I fell asleep for part of it. I have like vague memories of it.
Super is like that sensibility, but a lot darker.
Yeah.
And so you've got this sort of, when one of the characters gets killed, it is, you're not expecting it, and it is a real gut punch. Yeah. Which it's meant to be, given what that movie's about. But he likes killing people off that you don't expect.
Yeah.
He's so far, I was going to say he's like an unproblematic Joss Whedon in that way.
I mean, he had his problematic moment.
That's true.
Yeah.
He made it past it though.
Yeah, he did. He handled it well.
Yeah. I think the special effects in this are mostly very good.
Yeah.
I think when things go full CGI, they can get a little rubbery.
It's 2006.
Yeah, but there's a nice mix of practical monster stuff.
I think the close-ups on Michael Rooker's face when he's all monstered up are really good. When like half of his face is still a little bit human, and then half of his face is that like big mouth with all the sharp teeth.
Yeah,
and, like,
that must have been.
And,
must have been a brutal day.
Yeah.
Or multiple days or whatever.
The grand shunting looked good.
Yeah, that looked really good.
Yeah, surprisingly
good.
Like
there's
that could have gotten much more rubbery.
Yeah,
and, like
especially since like you would think that the slugs would be a little bit easier to animate or something. I mean, I don't know. I don't do this for a living, so it's probably all very hard. But like that thing, the shunting sequence at the end is a lot less definable as to what's going on.
Yeah.
And so to see those, the absorbing of the people and stuff looked so good.
Yeah.
I was surprised given the era that that it was made in.
Yeah, same. Though I do want to ask, like, so the alien crashes on a planet, chooses a convenient host to make its home in, then reproduces itself, I guess.
Yeah.
And uses, I know the Kylie, the teenage girl, explained all of this, uses some people as breeding stock, some people as hosts, and some people as like food. I guess. What was the grand shunting all about, though? Like, why was the grand shunting occurring?
That's a great
question. Is that
question.
the actual end game? Is that like... But then if you can just start absorbing people, why not skip all the...
Why do you need to...
interim steps of impregnating
worm
them? And yeah.
That's a great question. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the alien rules in this movie were just sort of convenient.
Nobody bothered to ask Grant Alien what he was feeling, what was going on with him.
Well,
maybe
Starla kind of did.
Maybe he was just stress eating.
Starla kind of asked him and so
That's
talked
true.
about how lonely he must have been, and he starts to kind of cry. Yeah.
It's to make his own friends that are all just him. What's funny about this is, I guess, so Jenna Fisher, Pam from The Office, was married to
Yes.
James Gunn at the time,
Oh,
and she got this role.
wait, are they still married?
They
or
are
no?
not. No.
Okay, I didn't
They've
think
been.
so.
I think they've been broken up for a while.
Yeah.
They're both remarried. I was at both weddings. That's how I know.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, they were great. Very tasteful. There was another actress who was supposed to play that role who had to drop out, and so he brought her in, and this was in 2006, and so she was actually like the most famous person in the cast at that point.
Oh, that's
because
funny.
like The Office had just hit.
Oh,
and
wow.
so when the movie was coming out, she was the one doing like the Tonight Show and stuff.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And she's just the secretary at the police station.
Yeah, which is pretty funny.
That's hysterical.
But yeah, I feel like we're running a little short on this one, but I'm not really sure where else to
Yeah,
go with
well,
it.
yeah, there's not a whole lot to dissect, like, plot-wise or character-wise. Like, I think the characters are pretty well done for what they are, but I also think most of them are pretty one-dimensional.
Yeah. I will say, going back to the internet movie blog sphere of that was into this movie, is I feel like at the time this was very much kind of heralded as the next coming of like Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. Because
Okay.
I remember I didn't really know Nathan Fillion until this movie.
Oh, really?
And so, and I remember people talking about him as like,
Trying
oh,
to
he's
remember
the...
when Firefly came out.
Check that out.
Because that is definitely where I know him from.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
that's still where I know him from,
we
essentially.
don't all have great taste, I guess.
You're not all giant teenage girl nerds who...
I've given that show a shot. I've never liked it.
Really?
2002. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's already
But
kind
that
of...
was pretty niche. I feel like Firefly
very, yeah.
took off after it was
14
actually...
episodes niche.
Yeah. But I feel like it got more popular once it was done.
Yes.
Like once
Yeah.
people found
So
it later on.
he's in that cult status already.
Yes.
And so this comes along, and I think at this point he's already kind of... People are on the internet are kind of seeing him as like the modern Bruce Campbell, the next Bruce Campbell.
Yeah,
And I guess technically he was because he's made most of his career on television. But so I think that was a big push for this movie from that crew.
Sure.
Yeah, and I can see that very, very easily. I think it's a kind of character that James Gunn refines into
Yeah.
Star-Lord,
Yes.
and then dials way up for Peacemaker.
Yes. The sort of like... It's interesting because on the spectrum of charming rogue, like Sheriff Bill is like more charming.
Yeah.
And Peacemaker is more rogue.
Yes.
Like Star-Lord's more in the middle.
Yep.
Where he's got a little bit of both. But like it's funny to see that in a way James Gunn has moved further and further away from the likable guy character and more into this like complicated fuck up.
Yeah. It's a really
Yeah.
it's a really interesting progression, which I kind of admire because I think he very easily could have just been doing the same thing over and over again.
Sure. Yeah, and he chose the more challenging thing because it's a lot harder when you have a protagonist that your audience doesn't necessarily like.
Yeah.
Or like maybe you think he's funny, but you also want to punch him in the face.
Right.
Which in Peacemaker, John Cena does so well.
Yeah, he's really good at
He's
that.
got a punchable face.
He does. But yeah, I think that also what's the word I'm looking for? I think that also is part of why the Rotten Tomatoes rating is probably split the way it is, because I think the critics are a lot of that internet movie blog crew.
Got it.
If I had to guess, and the viewers might be a bunch of normies. I don't know.
Well, some of them are probably more like me, where I feel like I appreciate what this movie is doing, but it's maybe not for me.
Yeah.
You know, like I get a lot of these references, and I understand the building blocks that this has been propped on top of.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have a tough time with horror comedy. Like it's not really my go-to subgenre.
Sure. Yeah.
Which, you know, nothing wrong with it, but they often don't work for me, and I don't really know why that is.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to me because this feels like it should be my kind of movie, and I do like it, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever going to watch it again.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like it's just missing something.
Yeah.
I cannot put my finger on what that something is.
I don't know if it's
stakes or...
Yeah, I think it does. It walks such a fine line tone wise in a way that I really appreciate, but I do think is gonna be very hit or miss for people.
Yeah,
because like if you've got something like Tucker and Dale versus Evil, have you ever seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil?
I think I started it and never finished it. Yeah,
that's a lot more of a broad comedy.
Yeah,
and I have watched that movie 2 or 3 times and really enjoy that in a way that with this one I'm just like, yeah, I get it. It's fine.
Yeah.
But like I don't know if it's you have to find these things at the right age or something, because like why do I love Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, but this is like fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if maybe this is a little too... As much as we were talking about how James Gunn has kind of refined the version of this that he does now, maybe this is already like too preemptively polished. I don't know. I am grasping at straws for why it doesn't work for either of us. Because if it was just me,
I would say, do I think it works? Sorry, finish your thought.
Well, maybe not works, but you know, if it's not my preference, I have no sense of humor. That's obvious. But you do have a sense of humor.
We all know,
yeah, I know.
We've got 101 other episodes to prove
I get the most is what a boring bitch. But like, I don't know.
Listen, I say that after I stop the recording. Don't blow up my spot here.
But yeah, it surprises me that neither one of us is like, this isn't a home run for either of us, which is interesting.
I think it's... the best thing I can say about it is I think it is a really good first draft for the thing that he gets much better at.
Yeah.
Like I think, you know, again, this is very Peacemaker-y. I think Peacemaker is a home run.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like, yeah, he got on base.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the next batter kind of popped out. Maybe the game isn't that. I don't know. I'm running out of analogies.
I'm going to belabor this baseball metaphor.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think it's an early version of his thing, which is good. I can't stop comparing it to Evil Dead because like Evil Dead is so fully formed right out of the gate, even for as ragged as it is.
Yeah,
it's like it's all there.
Yeah,
and then they refine it and change it in kind of different ways each time.
Yeah,
whereas James Gunn seems to be one of those people who just sort of keep polishing the same stone,
Sure.
which is fine.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
if it
I mean,
works.
we've encountered several
Yeah. As
several
I've said-
directors and writers like that, including, Cronenberg himself, who just keeps
Oh, yeah.
kind of grinding away at like, but why are humans?
Yes.
Yeah.
And as I've said in the past, for a long time I was like, I feel like David Lynch just keeps making the same movie over and over again.
Ish.
But like refining the ideas a bit more. So there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Unless it's bad every time.
Yeah. The gore in this is like a weird level of both intense and cartoonish,
Yeah.
which can,
Yeah.
I think, be a little off-putting for people.
Like when the guy gets cut in half up the middle.
Yeah, I mean that one, yeah, but I'm thinking more of I cannot stop just being like about the dead animals. But the like charnel house basement full of dead animals and rotting meat is like pretty gross, and pretty realistic looking, which is like, on the one hand, kudos to them for going for it, but on the other hand, it's just sort of like, oh, I don't really want to look at this though. And then when Brenda explodes, that is both really silly because she has just become a sphere with like little hands in her face sticking out of it. But she rips in half and explodes a bunch of alien slugs. And like, that's really horrifying. But it's also 2006 graphics.
Yeah.
So it's like not as visceral as it could be.
Right.
Which in a way for me was a bit of a relief. Like, I don't think I need a fully realistic this woman getting shredded by bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder, do you think this is something that people come back to? Like, you see a lot of these movies, and I know this is unfair to put this in the same air as some of these classics that we've talked about, but like, do you think this is a cult classic that people like are coming back to or finding still?
I don't
or do you
know.
think it is do you think like the majority of it is just like purely a product of the time that it was made, which was just such like a dead zone for interesting horror movies?
That's actually a really good question and a good point of like, if this is one of the few big swings someone was taking in the horror genre at the time, then is it just remembered fondly for breaking the monotony of what was happening? Or do the people who love this, do they have just like they would have loved it regardless of when it came out? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's remembered as a modern day cult classic or if it's remembered as James Gunn's first movie.
I wonder if there isn't a little bit of that because he's become such a like auteur figure in the last 10 years with the big successes he has had that I could see a generation of especially like younger fans of his sort of going back through his filmography and saying like, wait a minute, what is this? And
that's definitely what I would have done.
Yeah.
How do you feel about James Gunn in general?
Meh.
Yeah.
My husband really, really enjoys most of his superhero era work that we have seen, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
His tone can get a little much for me. That sort of, it's not making fun of the people in the movie exactly, but it is sort of highlighting their worst traits all the time for the sake of comedy.
Sure.
And that can get a little bit like, all right, I get it. Everybody's flawed and everybody's fucked up and everybody's going to do it wrong. But in the end, they pull it off somehow.
Yeah.
Like there's I'm thinking about the exchange between Bill and the mayor in the police car when the mayor has flipped out about not getting his Mr. Pibb. And then the teenage girl says, he comes from up there, and she points up and he goes, are you telling me this is a Martian? And
yes,
Nathan Fillion goes, Martians is from Mars. And it's like that's sort of like working that like grammatical inaccuracy in there to be like, these people are all just shit kickers from small town, middle of nowhere. And it's like, no, we get it, but I'm pretty sure anyone would just say Martians are from Mars. Like,
yeah,
it's just like he hammers it home a little bit too much for me sometimes.
Yeah, I think his tone works really well when he nails it, but if it's off, it can be grating.
Yeah.
Because I think the first Guardians is perfect. Like he just
I enjoyed that one a lot.
Strike right down over the plate to
Yep.
continue.
And I really enjoyed Peacemaker
labored
too.
Metaphors. I never really clicked with Guardians 2 because I think the mix is off.
Yep.
Like Drax is dialed up too high, and like the story never really. I get what he's going for, and I think the big moments work, but a lot of it just kind of like is a little bit amorphous for me.
Yeah, I do think that's at times with his thing is like diminishing returns after a little while.
But on the other hand, I really like Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And I love Peacemaker, and Guardians 3 I thought was pretty good. I didn't blow my hair back, but I thought it was a good enough ending for what they were doing.
I thought it benefited from less Chris Pratt.
Not to put my comic nerd hat on here, but like,
oh no, he just put on the biggest hat I've ever seen.
What Adam Warlock? Why use him in that way? But that's I'm not gonna.
That's a different podcast.
It's a different
than this one.
podcast than this one.
Yes.
But since we're here, no. I mean, I guess that's all there is to say really about the music for this was done by Tyler Bates, who I think this was probably one of his early ones, but he goes on to be let me just make sure I'm not making this up here.
Oh. Lying on air to our audience.
Listen, it wouldn't be the first time. Tyler Bates, which is funny because there's a wrestler named Tyler Bate with no S in the end. He goes on to basically be the guy who does a lot of I think I'm lying to you guys here. I think I'm confusing him with somebody else. Yeah, I think I am. Anyway, he does really good stuff. He does the John Wick movies. He's done all the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He did Pearl.
Oh.
The soundtrack to Pearl is really good.
This is really interesting to me because I'm not going to lie. I didn't really note the soundtrack to this movie.
Yeah.
It didn't really come through to me as a feature. Nor did it come through as a bug. Yeah. Or a slug.
He works with Rob Zombie. He did both Halloween movies. He worked on Rob Zombie's Grindhouse segment. Did The Devil's Rejects. So I guess, who the hell am I mixing him up with? This is not a great episode of the show. I apologize, guys. I'm mixing him up with another guy who was like the guy who slotted in to do all the action movie stuff. Who he started off doing like the Terminator sequels and like the Rambo sequels, basically because like Jerry Goldsmith had died. And so they were like, this guy was a student of Jerry Goldsmith. He's
got the
replicate
vibe.
that
Yeah.
sound. But no, Tyler Bates does good stuff. Yeah. Anyway, I think my final thoughts on James Gunn are he looks like Jamie Lee Curtis now. Every picture I see of him, I think,
but
it's
with
Jamie
the
Lee
goatee,
Curtis.
right?
Yeah.
Or a beard. I don't remember.
They have the
if he has a
exact
goatee
same
or a
haircut.
beard. Yeah, they kind of do. Hers is better, actually.
Yeah. This is number 150.
My mind is blown.
156 on our list. How do you feel about that?
I'm going to be honest. I don't think this should be on our list.
Yeah. I mean,
it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Like,
it's a tough one. It's one of those ones where there's worse stuff on the list.
There is, but there are better things that are not on the list.
That's true.
And I don't find this scary.
Yep.
And I think maybe that's part of my problem overall. I'm just having this realization now. Maybe that's part of my problem with horror comedy in general, is that the comedy element makes the horror element less scary. Mm-hmm. And so those two don't always mesh for me.
But you liked Return of the Living Dead.
I did, but that one reads as like a little more over the top.
Sure.
To me.
Yeah.
Like we're just like really going to swing for the fences.
This one is definitely trying to straddle the line.
Yeah. And I think it sort of damages itself by not committing fully to one side or the other a little more. I don't know. I would maybe not put this on the list, or I would put it much, much closer to 200.
Yeah, I would agree. Would I put this on the list at all? I probably wouldn't. But since it is on there, I think I would move it much lower. I think I would put it in like the 190s.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, if this isn't directed by James Gunn, I don't think it's on the list
That's
at all.
kind of what I feel like. If this were just sort of a one-off from a much lesser known director, it would be like a fun set of references and gimmicks, you know, harkening back to The Thing and Invasion of the Body Snatchers and like the Tommyknockers
Yeah.
and the trauma stuff. And yeah, all of that's good fun. I don't think there's... I just don't think it's one of the 200 best horror movies
Yeah.
of all time.
Did you see Cabin Fever?
No.
No?
No, I did not. Is it on our list?
I don't think so.
Well, then, perhaps you can add it to your wild card pile.
I don't want to.
You don't want it?
Because I really don't like Eli Roth. I thought Cabin
Fair.
Fever was very good at the time, but I dislike him enough where I don't know if I feel like going back to check.
That's fair.
But the reason I ask is because that is that's kind of in the same ballpark of this horror comedy thing.
Yeah.
But he's definitely going with more hard edge horror stuff.
Yeah, he'll always lean further in that direction.
But also his comedy is a lot broader than this. Like this, I think the humor of this movie has a bit of a refinement to the way it's written.
Sure.
I think it's very clever.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of little like jokes and sort of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cabin Fever is a lot of like, you know, they use quite a bit of outdated language, I think, in that movie. Let's put it that way.
I kind of had a feeling you were going in that direction. I was like, maybe I don't want to watch this either.
Yeah, I think it's one of those movies where at the time, again, it
was like edgy for them to say that.
I was into the same stuff these guys are drawing from.
Yeah.
And so seeing someone finally kind of doing that, I think really got me into it.
Yeah.
But I think if I watched it now, I'd probably go like, this is not good.
Yeah, and again, like we were saying earlier, the options were a lot more limited.
Yeah.
Back then.
Black Christmas came out this year, the remake of Black Christmas,
Oh.
which is not as good as the
Yeah,
original.
which is like, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will never get over Darcy from the last drive-in.
Yeah.
Her obsession with sequels and remakes being better than the originals, I think, is unhinged. But to each their own. I love Darcy.
Well, if she ever wants to come debate it.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath. I wouldn't hold your breath. Does that work? Anyway, let's get out of here. It's hot. It's so hot in here.
Clay has been steadily melting in front of me during this entire
the whole episode, I've been trying to figure out how to position myself in my chair because I've got
maximum airflow.
No, because I've got a like kind of a smooth rubber armrest.
Oh.
So my arm is just constantly slipping off of it because it's so covered in sweat. So hope everybody enjoys this. I hit the randomizer button. Beep, boop, boop, beep, boop, 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 beep, boop. And next time we will be doing number 83, a movie called Green Room.
Oh.
Which will be a nice crossover potential with the Penske File listeners as it features Patrick Stewart in a very intense role.
Cool.
So maybe see what Wes is doing. Maybe we'll bring in Wes for this one.
Yeah, why not?
I think Wes might be into this.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I'll ask him and see what's going on. Anyway, if you want to help support the show, head over to patreon.com/thepenskyfile, where you can follow Amanda and myself as we make our way through the Halloween series.
Clay is so excited.
That
the next one we are doing is Halloween Part 5.
Halloween 5. We've run out of ideas.
He can't wait.
Run out of money for a mask. Actually, 6 is when they run out of ideas fully. But yeah, so that's great.
You can just hear the overwhelming enthusiasm.
I'm trying to sell this very hard, and this is all I can muster. No, it's fun. It's fun.
I'm excited. I think it's going to be ridiculous and really fun.
No, it's been pretty good so far. I've never, if I have watched through these all, it's been a very long time. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to go through them again, just to remind myself I never have to do it again. And we're going to be doing a bit of a mini series in a couple episodes on the main show, but we'll talk about that more when we get there. But
teaser.
Yeah. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Clay.
We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.